Guys, this is Lord Chael speaking on behalf of our show sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies. They allow you to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so you can officially call yourself a lord or a lady. Established Titles is not just about your ego, you also get to do some good. In addition to your new fancy title, Established Titles supports global charities, like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to help with their afforestation efforts. Your title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Scotland. And your official certificate proves your title, as well as your unique plot number, where you can see the exact location of your land. Getting the certificate even allows you to officially change your name to Lord or Lady. Put it on your credit cards, your plane tickets, or even your dating profiles. Established Titles is currently having an extended New Year sale just for you guys. And on top of that, you can get an additional 10% off any purchase you make with discount code CHAEL. So click on the link below or go to establishedtitles.com/Chael. Use the promo code CHAEL to save an extra 10% today. Where does Francis go now? You guys want to take a guess? Whether you like that Francis is in this position of digging in and wanted to change his contract or not, you have to admit Francis has done nothing wrong. And there's plenty of words that you could use. Some of them will even be synonymous. But mutually exclusive will be, did he do it wrong? No, he did not. You could say you were annoyed. You could say you were disappointed. You can't argue with a guy who does it above board, and the only reason we know where Francis stands is he has told everybody. Whoever he's dealing with, he for sure has told, this is where I stand. And whatever happens to me after this is going to be your decision, but here's where I stand. Okay, he did nothing wrong. He didn't. So how do you want to look at this, and what are you going to predict happens? My opinion of Francis did change at the post-fight press conference. It really did. Because Francis was polite. Francis maybe has the right to be angry. This might turn into a back and forth and things are going to get ugly. Francis stayed calm and he stayed polite. And Kevin and I only asked him a very meaningful question. The words I'm about to tell you, if you miss this, are not going to be as strong on you as the body language that Francis had when he responded. And Kevin and I only simply said, Francis, the way your contract works, if you do not agree to fight, you're still going to be under contract until December, so meaning for a year. Are you okay with that? Are you okay sitting and waiting? And Francis very calmly responded, and he said, Kevin, I have fought 3 times in the last 3 years. So 1 fight a year is what I am used to. Let me tell you guys where that came from. And I thought that was polite by Francis. I thought he said it nice, but it also made me believe him. This is not a bluff. I took the demeanor along with the words to that response to show a sincerity. So we can start picking this thing apart. And if you take the side of Dana, don't feel as though you're going against the boys. That's the side of the fans. Dana knows we want to see Francis. There's big fights out there. He's trying to bring you Francis. But at the same time, we want to be fair here. We want to listen. We all might learn something. Something could change here. Let's see where that goes. What Francis is referring to, though, and I followed this very closely at the time that it happened, Francis Ngannou fought Rosenstruck. It was at UFC 246. It was less than a minute. And he was so scary and so intimidating and so successful and in devastating fashion that Dana White went to the press conference and said, Francis Ngannou is going to fight for the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to hold him out until then. That was meant as a huge compliment. It was also meant for a level of responsibility because Dana's seen, I can't just put Francis in there with anybody. He's got to be in there with a top guy who can protect himself. The only thing that was different about this is the heavyweight championship was currently signed. It was Stipe versus Daniel, and it was 2 months away. So Francis is going to have to wait those 2 months, let him come out of that, all the healing time, get back into a country. Francis is going to have to sit for a minute. And I've never seen anybody more guilty of the expression, no good deed goes unpunished, than Dana White. Dana was trying to be nice. He was trying to say, you've proved yourself. He's trying to say, whatever we have to do, whatever we have to wait for, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for you. And don't forget the timeline for this. This was with Jon Jones saying he was coming up. So when Dana said Francis is next, Dana ended the conversation on, will you just bring Jon in and let Jon go next? So this was meant to be very nice, but Francis looked at it a little bit differently and made it clear. And Francis said, I don't want to wait. I don't mind going through guys. Get me in there, get me busy. The night that Francis won the world championship, he said that again at the press conference. He said at the press conference, one thing I'm going to do as champion is I am going to stay busy. I want more matches. They can figure out who. He had a very good attitude. He really did. But he was offered a fight with Derek Lewis. He didn't do the fight, which is where you insert Ciryl Gane and the interim championship. So if you were to start to look at this and start to guess, what direction is this going to go? Look, I think Kevin Iole shined some major light on that. I did not know what Francis' contract looked like. I was under the impression, and this is just through things I heard through the media, that if Francis won, that activated a different clause in his contract, which meant he owed one more. That's what I thought. But now Iole is saying, no, he can actually walk. He just has X amount of months of what's called a exclusive negotiation period, which looks like it's going to take you the better part of the year until December. Francis also opened to saying this isn't just about the money. I want to have an opportunity to go and box, we think, Tyson Fury. If you side with Francis, if you think that that is reasonable, if you think that's the way that the sport should be done, I'd have to ask you what was different about Francis and the 10 other guys that won on Saturday night. 11 guys got their hand raised on Saturday night. Do you believe that victory is all that matters? You get to control a contract? Are you going to add things to a contract? Are you going to change a negotiation if you won your last fight? Because if you do, so did 10 other guys, 11 in total. So are we talking about changing the entire industry? You're not wrong if you're saying yes. I'm asking you a question. You think the entire industry should be changed? That there is no point in having guys under contract with you, that you have obligations to, they have obligations back, you're doing this together? Or do you think the rules for Francis should be changed because he's the champion? Is that what, if you're the champion, you don't have to come in and defend, the rules going to be different? When you're trying to climb the ranks, you got to play by one set, or you don't have to play by another. I mean, but this is the question. If it's okay for Francis, if you think Francis should be able to do this, then that means you think that all the guys who got their hand raised should be able to do it. Is that right? Because this is where it ends up being a little bit sticky. And Francis is saying it above board. His manager has said it above board. He's let all of us know. And his response to Kevin Iole, that if I have to sit for this year, would be in line with what I had to do after my last 3 fights. I found it to be powerful because I no longer think he's bluffing. I do believe Francis is being given bad advice. Wherever Francis is thinking that the world wants him to go and fight Tyson Fury, I don't know who put that in his head. But that's Francis's dream. And I'd be way out of bounds trying to take it from him. If you got some promoter out there that's willing to lose a ton of money and wants to throw it at that match, and how they're going to package it and how they're going to say, I really have the foggiest idea, but if they want to do it, that's their business. It's not ours. It would seem like a very risky thing and even a silly thing to hold out for when you don't know that you have a bird in the hand. Francis, being active, is looking at anywhere from $6 to $9 million this year. So his opportunity cost just to wait till December for a fight that he does not have is the better part of your entire career earnings. That's his decision. I would like to know how this got put in his head. Does he think because he has a tweet from Tyson Fury that Tyson wants to do the fight? Does he think that Eddie Hearn is going to go throw down the money? And it's a very tough thing, guys. Doesn't matter how good you are. And we've only seen it once. That was Conor McGregor, who was a simultaneously double champion within the UFC. Nothing's bigger than that. Francis is not in a spot bigger than that. Not to mention the opponent of Floyd Mayweather. Francis is not in a spot bigger than that with Tyson Fury. But Conor McGregor did not get $100 million. That is not true. There was no contract anywhere in the world that anybody in the world would put the name Conor McGregor and all of a sudden, here's your payday. The pay was for the sitting reigning UFC champion, who had the greatest carnival barker in the business, Dana White, behind it. That is what got you to $100 million. If December rolls around next year and Francis has been unseen, and Francis is no longer the undisputed champion, and he no longer has the power of the organization behind him, the unlikeliness of a payday in boxing with Fury exponentially declines. That's always a hard one to see. But I must tell you, 2 people wanted to fight Francis after this performance. One was Tyson Fury. Now, I can't give Tyson a hard time because Tyson wanted to do it before the performance, not just before Francis got outstruck. Tyson was on board anyway, so Tyson's okay here. And the other one that wants to do it is Jon Jones, who lost his balls 2 years ago. Jon has been offered this fight repeatedly and has said no. These heavyweights went out. They look terrible everywhere. And you start to have to revisit Surreal, which isn't fair. Now you're kicking a guy when he's down. But if you're being fair to Surreal, who had never been taken down, and they don't put an asterisk there with a caveat to let the audience know nobody tried to take him down. He spent 0 time on bottom. But they don't put a caveat. The audience has to do their research to realize he's never taken on a wrestler. You do start to look at the matchups and you start to realize, man, these were pretty damn favorable for a guy with Surreal's skills, which is fantastic, stand-up. That list of guys he went through to make it to a main event of a pay-per-view for an undisputed championship it couldn't have been much better. Could not have been handed to him a whole lot better. So start to revisit the whole thing. And it's not wrong when we do it, guys. We're doing what's right. We're admitting, we're saying openly things that we didn't see, things that we know only in retrospect. But all of a sudden, Jon Jones is seeing those same things. And I mean, it's as though the Scarecrow went and saw the wizard, because all of a sudden he's got his courage back. And I do think that that's very interesting. I think that that's food for thought. But where Francis sits and what his statements were in conjunction with what he said to Kevin Iole, I don't know how bullish I am on the idea that we're going to get Francis and Jon in there. There's some discussions that need to be had. There's some work that needs to be done. I'm encouraging you as you get vested in this. Do not throw your hands up and do not pick sides. Don't pick Francis' side. Don't pick Dana's side. Dana's been very straightforward. What he needs, Francis has been very polite and straightforward himself. Let's just enjoy the show. Let's see what happens. And perhaps through this process, we're all going to learn something.